Hello and welcome to the Creative Life Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. Welcome to the Creative Life Podcast, Jena Kirkpatrick, Jackie O'Brien, and Erin Walter. Hey, y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, just so that everyone knows, we are recording on a Monday morning. We were all joking about this beforehand, that this is literally the least rock and roll time for anybody to be talking about rock and roll, but here we are.
That's dedication.
It is. Yeah, y'all are professionals. Jackie and Erin, y'all are amazing artists, and I'm so glad that you're on the show. Erin, you're coming back, actually. I've had you on 1 or 2 episodes ago. But we're here to talk about something kind of different than I usually do on this podcast. I usually focus on a single artist, and we talk about, their history, their challenges, their triumphs, their creative process. But I actually got an email from Jena a couple of weeks ago asking me if I would be interested in having a conversation around the organization that she represents. So Jena Kirkpatrick is the manager of outreach and engagement for an organization called Evermore that addresses the subject of grief and grieving. And so we're going to talk about Evermore, and then we're going to talk about how Jackie and Erin have encountered grief in their lives. And then we're going to talk about a really cool event that's coming up where Jackie's and Erin's bands are going to be playing. But before we do that, I would like to start with an icebreaker question. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Born ready.
I don't know. Okay. Am I ready? I don't know.
That's how I spend this podcast every time is like quiet responses and then very loud laughter.
It's so true.
We'll see if I can like mellow or, meet in the middle somewhere. All right, hit us.
Okay. All right. So we'll go in order. Jena, Jackie, and Erin. Jena, what is the last book that you read?
Every day I read Taoism, 365 Tao. I practice Taoism, and I use the words that I read every day and disperse them on a page and fill them in to write a poem every day. So that's kind of a book I read every day. Yeah.
That's amazing. Have you read Ursula Le Guin's version of the Tao Te Ching?
I have not.
Okay. You know who she is. She's like a famous science fiction author. Yeah. She wrote a very feminist version of it, and it's amazing. It's a translation, I guess. But yeah. All right, Jackie, what about you? What's the last book you read?
I actually just finished Healing ADD by Dr. Daniel Amen, which I deeply recommend for anybody who, I won't say struggles with, but manages ADD or is, in a relationship or close to somebody who is. And All Fours by Miranda July, which is like current bestseller, kind of juicy pop sort of memoir, but also enjoyable.
Cool. I haven't even heard of it, so I'm going to check that out.
It's fun, different.
Yeah. All right. Erin, what about you?
I'm excited to get that Miranda July book because I didn't know about it and I love her. I have been going back to How We Win the Civil War. It's a Steve Phillips book. The subtitle is Securing a Multiracial Democracy and Ending White Supremacy for Good. And it just talks about, I work in nonpartisan, get out the vote work during this time of year. So just talking about kind of like the hopeful strategies that we have for getting Texas to actually be a voting state. We're predominantly a non-voting state more than anything. And so like I spent this weekend knocking on doors up in Dallas and Fort Worth with the NAACP and some others to try and get out the vote. And so anyway, I like to go back to those books where people who've really researched things more than I have can reassure me that we are going to get there if we do the work.
Yeah, so you're just into like some light reading here and
Just
there.
some light reading.
Yeah.
I also have a book that I read that my friend Tina Danner wrote called Incantations for Rest, for like, it's like spells and magic for rest. So it's like the two extremes, right?
That's what I call balance.
Trying. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and by the way, thank you for doing all the get out the vote work. That's super important and much needed right now.
Thanks. Yes. I would say, like, nobody wants to really knock on doors, and then you get out there, and when you do it, it's amazing. It's just like meeting your neighbors and fighting off social isolation. So I highly recommend it.
That's great. Were you well received?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Great.
Yeah, I love people.
Good. We need more people that love people.
I know.
All right. Well, let's jump in here. So I had not heard of Evermore before Jena approached me. And so I spent some time looking on the website. This is actually a really interesting kind of confluence because yesterday was the 4-year anniversary when we lost my mother-in-law. She had been living with us for a while and she ended up passing at the end of 2020. And so, it's something that, and every year we kind of make a commemoration, a small family one. And so it's something that's definitely on my mind, and it always is around this time of year. But I'll read out the mission statement, which is, Evermore is dedicated to making the world a more livable place for bereaved people. We are changing policies and practices within our communities and across our nation so that all bereaved individuals can achieve a healthy, prosperous, and equitable future. This is a huge mission, right? But it also occurred to me, and it's kind of like one of those duh moments where, we just don't have anything like this. And yet loss, bereavement, grief, these are probably the most common thing that every single human being experiences, or at least one of them. Absolutely. And definitely one of the most profoundly impactful. So Jena, I'm curious to know why Evermore was founded in the first place. Who was the person that kind of plucked this off the tree and was like, we need something for this. And there is nothing like this, and I'm going to do it. So what is that all about?
Well, Joyelle Mulherin is our founder and executive director. She experienced a huge grief event in the loss of her daughter, Eleonora. When she was in the hospital with Eleonora, the insurance companies would come in and ask her, do you think that she's going to die today or next week? Because we'll have to process different paperwork. She was navigating the medical scene there, trying to figure out portions of what her daughter needed for medicine as an infant, dealing with this. And after Eleonora died, she just began, thinking, this is wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Who is there to support and be there for grieving and bereaved people? No one. There's just no one. I mean, it kind of ends at a certain point. The casseroles stop coming. People stop checking in on you. And the effects are long-term. The physical effects, the health effects, the mental effects, the inability to maybe work, to have any care. And so we kind of coined the term bereavement care as being something that is all-encompassing. She just started talking to people and asking questions. And it turned out many people had these same issues. And that's kind of how I was introduced to the organization as well, was through the loss of my son. And I met Joyelle and figured out that all these things that happened to people and that happened to my family were happening to people all over our country. And so Evermore is the first organization of its kind in the nation.
I was literally having this conversation with my husband not too long ago where we were discussing this because a good friend of mine just lost her mother. And literally 6 weeks earlier, she had lost her stepmother. So it was her stepmother and then her mom. And, she's just in the trenches right now. She's just down in it. And, she's an only child. So a lot of the, the estate stuff, all of that stuff is on her. And it's the worst possible time to have to deal with any of that shit, right? Yeah. And yet you have all these scary kind of institutional people knocking on your door saying, we need this, we need that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's absolutely tragic that there is no support. So I'm delighted to find out about Evermore. Can you tell me a little bit about the kinds of support? Because it does look like there's a bit of advocacy, like there's an advocacy piece to this.
Right.
But what else is there?
Yeah, so Evermore works threefold. So our work in grief and bereavement advocacy involves many different things, but one of those is advising the White House on legislation that works for grieving and bereaved people. One of the things we're working on right now with different arms of the government is with the Social Security Administration. Upwards of 52% of parentally bereaved children in our nation are not getting their Social Security death benefits after their parents die. These are mostly marginalized kids. And SSA was kind of like, we just don't know where they are. And we were like, you need to find them and you need to give them their money. It's upwards of $1 billion that's not being given to these kids. So that's just one of the things we do. We have some really exciting things coming up. We're working really hard on bereavement leave, which is really important to me. My husband was fired the day after our son died. No job protections within FMLA. And so that's just ridiculous because after you lose your job, you may lose your car, you may lose your house, it's just compounding over and over. We also work directly with the leading grief scientists working in grief and bereavement in our country that are producing those statistics that tell you what happened with different types of loss. Sibling loss, of course, is different than parental loss or losing your child. All of those affect our health differently. So we're producing that data as well. And we also work in communities. So we give small micro grants out to communities. Last year, we did art classes with Cherokee children that were parentally bereaved. The indigenous children in our country are parentally bereaved at 2.5% higher than any other sociodemographic in our nation.
Wow.
Yeah, we choose to work threefold, and we're kind of just working constantly, almost 24/7, to make sure that we're making this world a better place for grieving and bereaved people.
Yeah. Why do you think that it is that we don't have anything like this, or we haven't had anything like this, or that it's never even occurred to anybody until now to have something like this?
Well, I mean, I think grief is very confusing and isolating in many ways. You know, you're sitting there trying to navigate the fact that your loved one is gone for such a long period of time, and you don't even think that these things are wrong. I was shocked to know that, people this was the norm in the nation. It's the norm to fight insurance companies for 6 to 7 years, like we did, just for the basic policy of the person that, killed your kid. It's like unbelievable to me that that's the way it is, but you're fighting against huge institutions and you need somebody on your side. And that's not always the case. Many times it's just like, I'm going to bury my head here and just be really sad and cry. And you deserve that space as well. But, that's why doing this on a national level and really bringing all these voices and stories to the table and finding out what's wrong and doing the right thing. That's what I really love about Evermore is we go in and we say, no, this is not the right thing to do. We need to do this, like we need to find these kids and get them their SSA benefits. We need to change this and make this better for people that may not, be able to use their voice at that time.
That's great. And, it just feels like, especially after we've come through the pandemic and there was so much loss then, it feels like there has been sort of this mass grieving and not even necessarily just the loss of human beings, but also the loss of a sense of safety and security. I mean, there's a lot that I think societally we're still grappling with on top of losses that have happened in the last 5 years of the people that we love. And I think that this is exactly the time and place for an organization like this, because I think that, it's going to continue. We're going to continue to have this as the world gets smaller and as we're all kind of more and more connected, we're going to feel these losses, whether they're personal or whether they're part of our communities or whether they're part of, entire areas of the world where people are suffering. I think we need to get our heads collectively around what it means to lose people that we love and how to humanely address that, because it really is it's a transformative moment in your life, right? And
Yes.
that's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. And you are profoundly impacted in every, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Every single aspect of your being is impacted. And we have to have some grace. We have to have some kindness and some willingness to support that across the board for every single human being, right?
Yes.
It can't even be a politicized thing. It has to be for everybody because we all need that. One of the things that I really liked on the website was that you have broken this down into these different communities. And, community is such an important part of how grief traditionally has been supported. And so you have these different groups of people, employers, faith leaders, healthcare workers who, they all have sort of a hand in lending support when someone experiences loss. And one of the ones that are on here that I see is entertainment and arts, which is delightful. I'm
Yes.
so happy to see that because I think art, that's the whole point of this podcast, but I think art is just so important to the human spirit and to how we interact with the world and with one another. From the standpoint of Evermore as an organization, what role does the artistic community have in supporting the processing of grief?
I love that. It kind of just goes back to grief being an isolating experience, and then creating this community. I'm still a poet and have been a poet for over 30 years. And so when I came, on board with Evermore, they were like, bring us music, bring us poetry, bring us these things. And so it's just such a wonderful cathartic space. We have a poet laureate for Evermore, which is incredible. I don't know of another nonprofit that has a poet laureate, but we offer
It's awesome
workshops. Thank you. Writing into the grief. And we come together, and it's hundreds of people from all over the country and even the world writing poetry together and sharing about their grief and loss together. We have music that we offer people, songs for holidays, just a beautiful little reminder that you're not alone. So it's really important to us as far as building community, just bringing as many voices together that we can so that everyone can know that they're not alone in their loss, that we see you, we hear you. And what, the connection with art, with music, with poetry, with writing, all of the creative outlets, it just brings us together, I think, and gives it a beautiful voice. And you can go, wow, they lost someone they love too. They lost someone they love too. And like I always say, oh, we put our pants on today. This is a great day. Like we got up and we put our pants on, like, yay, let's all support each other. We're all going through this. And it just makes you feel understood and heard, I think. You find yourself in the music and the notes of songs and the lyrics and in the poetry and in the art too.
I mean, it's true of pretty much every other aspect. It's true of love. It's true of hate. Those are the places we go to find the reflection that we need to sort of validate our feelings. Yeah. And grief is obviously going to be one of those too. Jackie, let's talk to you for a few minutes. Now I just want to say, I think you're a badass. I've never had the opportunity to actually talk to you. You're actually a co-founder of the Bright Light Social Hour, which is a fucking phenomenal band, and a new project that you are fronting called Starflake. Mm-hmm. And I've seen both those bands, and they're amazing. And if you are in Austin, or actually not in Austin because y'all tour, go see Jackie and his folks. You have been very open in the past about your loss and about the role that grief has had in the music that you've created, and I'd love to hear a little bit. Can you kind of tell us your story, your experience?
For sure. So my brother was a year younger than me, and we grew up super close, really best friends. And he was always super, supportive of my music career. And when the Bright Light Social Hour began to tour and put out our first record and, get some momentum and traction, I asked him to manage the band, and he stopped his life and he was on track to, he was like working in Moscow for a finance company. It was just, very different life. And he dropped everything and came and dedicated himself to growing our business and just being the business mind that we lacked. And he was so effective and so charismatic and just like the funniest, most hilarious person, ever. And he, at the age of about 26, very suddenly had a pretty severe case of bipolar 1 disorder. So he went, from being very stable to very suddenly having these very intense episodes of mania that, at first would be very fun. He'd be incredibly energetic and have really wild ideas. But, he'd talk you into him and you'd get, he was wanting to put on a festival in Moscow, and we like began work on that project. And then he would swing out of that into a really like a depression like you have not, like I had never witnessed. And I had no experience with that. I thought bipolar meant you were just a bit moody. I had no idea what it really meant. And so to manage that was very chaotic, and honestly, probably the most traumatic part of the experience was just trying to ride those waves and keep, I mean, he would do very wild things like hire a taxi driver to be his bodyguard and pay him thousands of dollars to drive him to Washington, D.C. so he could speak to the director of the CIA and try to talk him out of certain, deals that the government was getting involved in. And he would be so confident in his plans that you would be like, man, this makes sense. And you'd look it up, and sure enough, the director of the CIA was speaking at his alma mater like that day. And you're like, what? And then, and then you get kicked out for not wearing shoes or something like that. And things very, I could go on with those kind of stories. And then, right, and then he would come back very like confused and just so demoralized, and kind of dawning on him everything that had just happened. And I don't know, it just got to, I got to a point about a year and a half of that it was just so exhausting. I could just see it wrung everything out of his soul, and he just began to talk a lot about suicide and be very open about like, hey, I know I'm only 27 years old, but I feel I've lived a very long and incredible life, and it just feels like my time. And I think he hated that he felt that he had his very matter of fact about it. Like he felt that he had this sort of a terminal illness of the mind, but he had to commit violence. And it was very tough for the family to, of course, for my mother and I to have those conversations. And, he would just wanted to talk about it and have our permission. And that was just conversations were very difficult. And, he would buy a gun, he would return it. He'd kind of, we'd talk him out of it. He kind of would go on like that. He'd have a good week, but then he would just channel back. And anyway, eventually, we had a studio that we still run that's out of a little house in Lakeway. And at the time, he and I were living there. And he, couldn't find him one day and went down by the water. And I found him there shortly after he had, sorry that this is a little graphic or intense, that I had found him shortly after shooting himself. And I know that sounds so horrible and so intense, but I don't know if it's, I call it the presence of the divine. It could be, very intense brain chemicals. But at that moment, it was this sense of overwhelming peace. I think I felt this secondhand, just like a monolithic benevolence or something, that it felt like the most, it sounds so crazy every time it comes out of my mouth, but it felt like the most just wondrous, beautiful, peaceful, almost ecstatic, joyous thing I had ever witnessed, even though you would think it would just be this horrifying scene. And I, after a little bit, sheriffs and people start to show up and sort of break this kind of divine, amazing, terrible moment. And then like, as you've mentioned, Jena, the ugly, the practical things, okay, you've got sheriffs coming and talking to you like it's just another day on their job, having no understanding for what you're really going through, and trying to just navigate forward. And then that's the other part of the grief, is just like having to navigate life continually, repeatedly accepting this new reality over and over, and your brain fighting you to accept it. And so, I was very lucky to have a incredible cadre of supportive, sweet band members who just, they were all suffering too, and we took time off and we dove into our music, and we released 2 albums, Jude Volume 1 and Jude Volume 2. Jude was my brother Alex's middle name. So we made 2 albums dedicated to him. The first being just the acceptance of the reality of it, the being overwhelmed and just so our earth shaken. And then the second trying to come to the other side of it and trying to accept it and realize the sign that, there is life after death, and that death is what affirms life, and that, we have to support each other. We have to talk about it. We have to be real. And otherwise we are isolated. We don't get the love that we receive. And it was just shocking how after that we would tour, and every night, I love to talk at the merch booth and just, say a quick hi to people who enjoy the show. But it really took a different turn where people would say, hey, I struggle with bipolar. I lost my mother to something similar or whatever. And every night I was having these conversations that, I felt so much less alone. And it just, I felt so lifted in knowing that there were other people who were struggling, who also felt like they had a counterpoint in music, or a piece of music, or something that they could continue to go back to find a little bit of connection and comfort in those moments. So I really, and I really have the Sims Foundation here in Austin to thank. I had never been to therapy in my life. I didn't know, Sims, by the way, is an amazing Austin foundation that provides mental health care and addiction services for musicians and their families and the music community in Austin. And, to get my first experiences with counseling, we found a band therapist, which was incredible to help us get through it. And just, there were a lot of very weird, grief comes with a lot. Everyone experiences very differently. There were, new, just interpersonal difficulties that were coming up, and we realized that those were us just struggling with grief and struggling with different needs that we had, with each other, and managing that was incredible. To experience to visit a psychiatrist for the first time, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think, several years after all of this, in my late 30s, which was really something that I'm so grateful for now, that I never would have come across if not for all this. So yeah, I've been very vocal as much as I can be in our music, and about, grief and its role, and as well as help, and how it has helped us, survive and continue as a band. And I really think we have this great foundation and this great community to thank for our ability to carry on. I think many organizations, bands especially, with so little financial and, all kinds of support, it would be very hard to continue. So when I found out about Evermore, and Evermore reached out to us, I also was not aware of it, and was reading the website, was like, this is so cool that this exists. And, this is something that a space that we had to carve out for ourselves. And it's amazing to know that someone's out there supporting it. But honestly, I didn't even put it together that there was a reason that we had been selected to be a part of this benefit. And Joyle, the founder, wrote me a really sweet note saying, I read your story, and I just want to say I feel for you, and we're so glad that you're the one that's, one of the artists representing what we're doing and helping us raise money. So then it really was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be a part of it, and so glad to know that there is something like the Sims Foundation was helpful to me and to my band, that there is this bereavement organization just out there helping, representing, and it's just amazing, and I'm happy to be a small part of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there, Jackie, that we could do a whole podcast on. But I'll say 2 things. I'm intimately familiar with bipolar, and I won't go into it, but I feel you. I understand, and it's just to have gone through that, and then I don't know. I think part of the grieving process is also just sort of trying to figure out, were there other what could have been done, what blah blah blah. There's all this stuff that goes through your head that you have to sort through as well.
Absolutely.
And I think your band And what you've just described is the best case scenario for why these organizations like Evermore and Sims, which Sims is amazing, and I should have them on as well. But the fact that that's what these kinds of organizations can do. They can take a group of people or an individual who's gone through this traumatic experience. And I want to point out that the reason why organizations like this are so important is because we as a society don't really give a shit about our artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of artists are out there without health insurance, without all these other things that they could just go out and get whatever support they need. And we need organizations like Evermore and like Sims that are able to offer free services or discounted services to people who are truly in need, so that they can go on and do the work that I feel, and I know you feel, is so important to society. And that is helping people get in touch with those beautiful innermost parts of yourself as a human being. That's what art is for, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm just so I'm so happy to hear, like, it's a terrible, tragic story, but in the end, you were saved. The Bright Light Social Hour was saved. Your families and your friends were all, those relationships were strengthened rather than breaking apart, which often happens because of grief. So wonderful.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful, and I'm just, happy to be here talking about it and spreading the word. And I think that's, when it's not until you or someone very close to you needs something like this that you're like, wait, what is there out there? And you find something like the Sims Foundation, you're like, oh my God, amazing that it exists, or like Evermore. But then the next thought is, how is this not widely known, and how is it not widely, like, I don't know, at least at the time when I was starting with Sims, there was no program like it in the country and probably across the world. And this is the first I've heard of Evermore, and it's like, right where you find out about it, you realize it's incredible, and then you realize how is it not obvious? How is it not ubiquitous? But well, here we are doing our part.
Yeah, it will be. It will be, I hope. Okay, Erin, let's talk to you. Now, you are founder and front woman of Parker Woodland, which is an awesome little band that just released an album last month. And you are also, I don't know what your exact title is, but you work with the
it's a lot of words. I can jump in if you want.
Please.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Jackie, I was crying and smiling during your story. Thank you for sharing it. And you do have someone from Sims on the podcast. I'm proud to serve on the advisory council for Sims.
No way.
Wonderful.
And so hearing your story, it means a lot. And Parker Woodland, my band, does stuff with Sims whenever we can. The last several shows we've had for our album release and our single release, we've brought them along with us, because you're right, Jackie, like, we just want more people to know that those resources are out there for our community. And now so excited to support Evermore. But what Amanda was alluding to is, in addition to my band, I serve as a minister and executive director of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. So It's the justice organization for the UU Church in Texas. And so one of the things that comes up for me as we're all talking is, as a minister, I have the honor of being present with people in times of loss, death, grief. And there's so often things that people don't say. It is such a transformative experience. And I've also experienced with losing my dad 21 years ago, that same piece that Jackie described. And I know a lot of people, even in the hardest deaths, that sense of peace in that moment is really there. And then to hear you describe that, awful juxtaposition with what happens in all the bureaucracy, it's so real. But anyway, Amanda, I'll let you ask a question, but that's my context.
I just have the same question for you that I had asked Jackie, which is, what is your experience with grief, right? And what role does your art have in processing it? or has it had in processing it?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad died suddenly when I was a young adult, and I'll never forget being in the hospital room. My sister and I just, in shock, bereft, I don't know, and hearing my mom say to someone down the hall, "This is the first time Erin and Megan have ever lost anyone."
Mm.
And just that experience when you lose someone, no matter what, like even when you lose someone and it's their time, you were expecting it, they've lived a great and full life, even that is a really big thing and should be honored, right? Like it's not a competition of like
Right.
which grief is the hardest or anything like that. Like and when you lose someone unexpectedly or traumatically, through trauma, it is especially hard. Everyone in Parker Woodland in the last couple of years, my other two bandmates have both lost parents. So we've been alongside each other, supporting each other in grief or in bereavement. Absolutely. It's 21 years and I'm still processing that loss through my songwriting. On our new album, There's No Such Thing as Time, the title of the album comes from the song Stranger. And the refrain in the song is, "You think you know yourself, you think you know the world, grief makes you a different girl."
Mm-hmm.
And I sing that over and over again. And I know from our friends and our fans, what that line means to people. But I also try really hard to find like positive messages to take out of my loss experiences. Like one of my first songs was called Later Than We Think. And it was about, memorializing my dad's last words, which were unexpectedly his last words to his sister in a phone call where she was trying to decide whether to move home to Texas or not after losing her partner. And he said, "Sister, come home. It's later than we think." And you don't know how long you have with people. And so like part of the Parker Woodland ethic is living life to the fullest, expressing our love for each other and for the world, while also trying to tell the truth in our lyrics about the things that are hard and the grief that we experience. And Jena and I have known each other a long time through writing communities, and I've known about Evermore and wanted the chance to work with Evermore for a long time. So I'm really, really excited about this project and this event and getting to do it with Jackie and Bright Light Social Hour. And then the one other thing I want to say before I forget is just as a UU minister, for those of you who don't know Unitarian Universalism, it's a very, very progressive, queer affirming, justice centered denomination. And I understand why, as a society, we've lost, or why religion has eroded. I really do. And one of the things we've lost in that way is like rituals of grief and also like support in communities sometimes. So we need to look for ways to have supportive communities in loss. And so I'm thankful to Evermore for what they're doing for that.
I agree with you. I think historically religious community is where a lot of this happened. And I also personally really understand why people have chosen to step away. However, I will say that when we lost my mother-in-law, it was the religious community that she was affiliated with and that, my family is affiliated with, that came in clutch. I mean, they were there, right? And there's something to be said for that. And so I think the takeaway there is, if you're not a person who has that, who has access to that, or is interested in it, because you don't have to be interested in religion, but you still need that kind of community. You still need people that are going to show up when you need them, bring what you need, call, check on you, run your errands, do those kinds of things. And, it's just, it's one of those rare times in your life when you sort of free fall. You're just like, I got nothing right now. And then the people around, it gives the people around you an opportunity to come together and hold you. And there's something so beautiful. I'm so touched by what Jackie said about having encountered his brother and then having that moment of just like peace and wonder and awe. And I don't think we talk enough about this. And that is that loss is, there is something truly amazing about it. It is transformative. It is like there's an enormous amount of power there, right? And I feel like, you know, we only focus on what's negative, but I had time. We were very lucky to have time and support after my mother-in-law died to be able to just sit and reflect on who she was, what she meant to us. And I feel like there were parting gifts, right, that she left me that I was able to retrieve during that space. And it is sort of I want to call it sacred, right? Non-denominationally sacred time. And I think traditionally, if you go back in throughout all of history, you know, any group of people have that sort of understanding that that's what grieving is about. It's not just about taking care of business. And in fact, that's probably the least important part. And so I think what you're saying here, I think it's really important that we give people the opportunity. And I think that's why art is so important, is because it does honor that sort of bigness, those moments that you have when you are bereaved, where nothing else really matters, right? Like you everything can go to hell. You're just focused on what is happening right now, your thoughts, your feelings, and the immediate connections you have to other human beings.
Right. And that's what's so important about what Evermore does at the advocacy level, like at the national advocacy level. Like, we shouldn't have to fight for these things at every company, at every organization. Like, we need to have those bereavement policies that allow people to just say, like, nothing else matters but the photos I'm looking at, or the people I'm hugging, or the ashes I'm receiving, or the song I'm going to write to remember my loved one's last words, or whatever it might be. So it goes, that public advocacy goes with and supports the spiritual and creative and familial things that we want to prioritize.
So, Jena, you're not a musician that I know of, but you are a poet. So I'll ask you the same question about that I've asked Erin and Jackie about the role that your art has in processing grief and whether or not it was relevant during the time of your loss.
Thank you. I'm sitting here just so moved by your story, Jackie and Erin, and your answers, and this dialogue, this amazing dialogue that's happening around grief and community and supporting one another. I just want to say how much that means to me. It means the world to me and to Evermore. To be in these sacred spaces with you is very precious. So poetry is, it's a part of my life. It's my meditation. It is my song. It is my way to connect with the world around me, to speak with the world around me, about it, to it, respond to it, all of the things. It's been with me ever since I can remember writing, since I was a little girl. It's how I process, and then being able to share my poetry with other people, to share it on social media and to have people react, that they feel this poem really spoke to them as well with their loss or with their understanding of a subject or a topic. Writing for people at their weddings, writing for people's loss. I write poems for people all over, for any occasion, and it's just an honor to be a part of that space with people and to try my best to interpret that for other people.
Yeah, the cool thing about art is that, or maybe it's the cool thing about artists, is that they're able to take something that is so difficult and process it. It goes in, they experience these things that are terrible or wonderful or whatever. They process it, and then they can turn it around and produce something that helps other people emotionally and spiritually, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty fucking magical, actually.
I think so.
Right? I mean, that whole process of like, this thing happened to me, my heart got broken, I lost somebody I love, whatever. You can take it in, you can mix it around, do whatever you got to do, whatever your creative process is, and then you produce something. And what that does is it helps other people with that same who are experiencing that or something similar. And to me, like that, what's better? What is a better, I guess, definition of humanity than taking the things that hurt you and turning around and using them to help somebody else?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
You know?
Yeah, I agree completely. I do have a band as well. It's kind of like this crazy funky jazz band that backs me up.
All right.
And I read poetry for it. And you just, when you were saying that, I thinking of a song I wrote, you know, all of them come from poems, but it's called 4,015 Days. You know, it's about all the days that I didn't have Ellis, my son, in my life. And at the end of it, and the recording, I'm crying and breaking up. And I wanted to leave that in there, you know, to let people know how that felt for me. And yeah, there's always a big response from people that, you know, you're able to hold that space, you know, in the tears and the words and reflecting upon that, and the people that were there to support me.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like coming up on Sunday, November 17th, the Bright Light Social Hour, aka Jackie's band, and Parker Woodland, aka Erin's band, and another band, which is who else is it?
The Squirrel Show.
The Squirrel Show, that's right. Are all going to be doing a benefit show. And I got to tell you guys, my heart is broken because I will, like, literally on the 23rd, I'm coming back from my trip. I'm going to miss it. And it just, like, Bright Light Social Hour and Parker Woodland in the same place at the same time.
Right.
I just, whatever. I'm just so upset that I'm missing it.
I'll have to do it again.
But yeah.
I know. Right?
Okay, good.
Totally.
Yeah,
y'all could just come over to my house.
Do it again.
Just do it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
so talk to me about Love Is for Evermore. It's on the 17th. And by the way, I'll put all of this in the show notes so people can just click and buy their tickets or whatever. What do they need to know about the show?
Well, yeah, it's at Radio East on Sunday, November 17th. It's starts at 4:30, so it's kind of a late afternoon show, so everybody can come out and bring their kiddos and be able to get home by a decent hour. Love Is for Evermore started last year on 11/11, which was the day that my son passed away. And so I wanted to kind of flip the narrative and do something for my community and talk about Evermore and talk about loss with everybody. And so it just kind of, you know, flipped the narrative for me, and I was able to do something positive, and it felt really good to do that. And so this year we were like, let's do something even more cool. And yeah, this is a dream lineup. I'm so excited to have everybody come out and be a part of it, and for everybody to learn a little bit more about our stories and share in community and be there together.
Yeah, tickets are $25. If you don't go see the show for $25, you're an idiot. Like, you cannot, like, this is like the best damn deal. Huh?
Well said.
Right.
No, seriously, yeah. Like you're not gonna get to see a show like this for that amount. There's also a VIP ticket for $160. So yes, absolutely go. And Radio East is a great venue. I hear wonderful things about it. I haven't been, but
it rules.
It does rule. We just played a show there like a week ago with a giant dog, and it was
amazing.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. We had the best time all across the board. So yeah, we can't wait to replicate it and then some.
Awesome. I love a giant dog. I saw one of Pune Ghana's shows that she's doing, that series of, I don't know about monthly, but occasional shows.
Yes.
I saw this band Snooper, and it was like, I'd never seen a punk show so energetic, people stage diving, but also it sounded incredible. Massive sound system, great vibes, open air spot. It's beautiful.
It's a badass venue. It really is.
All right, whatever. I don't care.
We're just promising you we'll do it again, Amanda. And Andrew, the guitar player from Parker Woodland, also said to tell you hi.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Everybody go and then make me even more jealous. And yeah, that's the plan. Okay. All of that is going to be in the show notes, and it is more than a month away. So there's plenty of time. I'm going to be obviously out of town, so I won't be able to promote it, but I will be promoting this heavily for the next couple weeks before I leave. Let's wrap up. I'd love to hear any final thoughts from the three of you, because this has been this is a really difficult conversation, because there's just so much that we can't get too deep in just the short amount of time. But I'm sure that each of you has some additional thoughts or thought that and I want to give you the space to share that, because this is just so rich and y'all have such amazing experiences. Jena, anything you want to leave the listening audience with today?
Yeah. I'm just, working in this space every day and talking to grieving and bereaved people every day, and that being a part of my world, it just leaves me feeling so very grateful. So very grateful for the support, for the music, for the artists, for everybody going, yeah, we feel that too, building that community and coming together and just one big ass hug around all of us, to say this is what we stand for and this is where we've been and this is where we want to go is really super important to me. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you.
What about you, Jackie?
I have I guess I just like to share another quick example in my life about why this means so much to me. And actually, all of you here, I really appreciate y'all rescheduling. Last week, we were supposed to record this podcast, and my partner actually had a miscarriage, which is, another thing that is so crazy that we don't talk about in our culture and our society. And it was kind of, you're not supposed to tell people until a pregnancy is, I think it's 12 weeks, when the rate of miscarriage drops very significantly. And and we were like, this is stupid, like, so you keep it to yourself, and so then if you struggle, you lose the pregnancy, then just keep that to yourself too, and you don't have anybody to support you because you've kept it a secret the whole time. Like, it just makes, anyway. And what's even crazier is that her job, she was going to tell her boss that, hey, I need to take some days off, like, I'm going through this. And she looked up their company's policies as a tech company, and you can take sick leave, which is a certain amount of days per year paid. Or you can, for a miscarriage, it's under FMLA. What's the Family Medical Leave Act? Yeah. And you can take time off, but it's not paid. So she has to lie to her company and say, like, oh, I'm just sick and won't be able to come in, and not be able to tell the truth. So then she's not able to get support, in her workplace, or else it'll cost her money. And then we, looking up that only 8% of companies in the United States offer any kind of leave or anything for miscarriage. And that's just, it's a thing that, again, something that had never crossed my mind. But then you go through it and you realize, like, we're in the dark ages with a lot of this stuff. And so another reason that I just really appreciate what Evermore is doing, and that there are people who understand these things, there are people who don't, and there are people who do, and we all need to be communicating and sharing stories and sharing, like, hey, this is difficult, and just so it doesn't throw you off when you happen to go through it. You're going to need some space, you're going to need some time, you're going to need some support, you're going to need support in your workplace, you're going to need support from your friends. Maybe it's not the best to keep these things all secret and hidden away. So we really appreciate what y'all are doing, and having us involved just means so much on so many levels. So we're very excited to and nothing from me heals the soul more than getting out to play music and share it with people. So thanks for giving us a great opportunity to do that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And please convey to your partner our love and support. That is a difficult thing to go through, and you're absolutely right. It's actually incredibly common too, and people just don't talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Erin, what about you? What are your famous last words?
Oh gosh. Well, Jackie, I'm so sorry for your loss, and you're absolutely right about talking about it. I went through something similar about 15 years ago, and the guilt and shame and judgment that I felt talking to my place of work, who were great people, But it's like without policies, when it comes down to having to navigate it situation by situation when you're in it, is just so hard. And so you have my email now if you and your partner need someone to talk about who's also been there.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Well, one of the things that's really on my heart, a lot of my family lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and so I'm so thankful that they're alive. Last night I saw my sister and my nephew for the first time since Hurricane Helene hit them. They came to Texas a few days ago because they couldn't go in the other directions because of the roads. They couldn't go to closer family in Tennessee or Florida, so they came here. And Jena and I had already been talking about, and Joyelle, about all the ways that Evermore is timely for what we're dealing with, right? The epidemic of gun violence, all different reasons people are bereaved. And now we add these climate disasters to deal with. And so I just name that's on my heart. And there's going to be a lot of bereavement and a lot of bureaucracy for people to deal with coming out of that. And so again, just wanting to spread the word and thank Evermore for their work, and echoing what Jackie said. All of us in Parker Woodland feel that playing music is the way that we celebrate life, even when things are hard. And so we look forward to celebrating life with Jackie, with Jena, with everybody at the show.
Beautiful. Well, this has been actually delightful for a Monday morning conversation. I didn't expect to enjoy this so much, even though it was heavy and weighty. I feel surprisingly uplifted, and I think it's because my faith in humanity gets restored anytime I talk to good people who are out there doing what they can to make things better for others around them. And I feel like that's exactly what each one of you are doing individually, right, or as part of your projects. And then with this event that's coming up, Love is Forevermore, I guess it's the marriage of, all the things I love, the art and the music and the creativity and the cool people, but it's also taking into consideration, it's not a superficial thing. It's a very human thing. And y'all are willing to, not be these, elevated sort of important quote unquote rock stars. You're able to come down to, let everybody know these are common experiences. These are things that we have dealt with personally, and having the courage to open up and let people into these intimate things that have happened in your life through your art is a gift. It's a gift. And, I'm a fan of all three. So
same, me too. I'm so amazed by anyone who is doing that taking the pieces and building something new with them is just continually inspiring to me. And I just, like Erin, Jena, at Joyelle too, at Evermore, like just these getting to know more about everyone's stories and these things that motivate, because I know that they can also be very demotivating to go through grief and this stuff. So to see people pick up those pieces and build something amazing with it will forever blow me away.
Thank you, guys.
Right on. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for your time. And I hope you'll all come back again at some point, and we'll have another conversation. Except Erin, you're not allowed to come back.
No problem. I will see you exclusively at the rock show from now on. Much love to all of you.
Yeah, my love to all you guys.
Yes, big hugs.